O Egypt, Egypt, only stories of your religion will survive, and these your children will not believe. Only words carved in stone will narrate your pious deeds. I started the recording because I was talking to my friend Tony, who's over here. You'll hear him but not see him, because I like shit. I do this one at a time, but I'm not going to be doing this. Don't get used to this. That's the last time I'm turning the computer. So, Asclepius, the Discourse of Hermes Trismegistus. I was reading a prophecy by not Asclepius, but Hermes Trismegistus. This Facebook post, I actually suggest following me on Facebook because I only use Facebook to post pretty much the shit I'm going to be talking about in this podcast and 3.5. Anyway, who is Trismegistus? Master of all arts and sciences, perfect in all crafts, ruler of the three worlds, scribe of the gods, and keeper of the books of life. Thoth Hermes Trismegistus, the 3 times greatest, the first intelligentsia, was regarded by the ancient Kemetic people as the embodiment of the universal mind. Hermes Trismegistus is the author who represents a combination of the Kemetic god Thoth and the Greek god Hermes, who were both gods of writing and magic in their respective cultures. Whether Hermes actually existed was in fact both the Greek god Hermes and the Egyptian god Thoth, and represented a shared cultural link between ancient Greece and Kemet. There is no way to know, especially since practicing sincerely the following teachings of the 3 times great mystic, what it means to actually exist will change. What we can be certain of is that these principles of Hermeticism held immense value for these ancient cultures, whoever their author may be, and whenever they resurface in culture, they act as a catalyst to creative renaissance, revolutions, and cultural regeneration. Let's go. All that can be said for sure is that the 7 Hermetic laws shared in the Corpus Hermetic have been found in part in the Nag Hammadi library in 4th century Kemet AD, and even in the emerald tablets of Thoth, proving a common thread of some sort. Okay, this is a prophecy. Disaster foretold. Do you not realize, Asclepius, that Egypt is the image of heaven? Or to speak more precisely, all things which are set in motion and regulated in heaven has been transferred or have descended into Egypt. More truthfully still, our land is the temple of the whole cosmos. Yet, since the wise should know all that is to come, it is right that you should not be ignorant of something else. A time will come when it appears that the Egyptians have worshipped God with pure mind and sincere devotion in vain. All their holy worship will turn out to be without effect and will bear no fruit. For the gods will withdraw from earth to heaven, and Egypt will be deserted. The land which used to be the seat of religion will be abandoned by the gods and become void of their presence. Not only will foreigners, pouring into the region and covering this land, neglect religion, but what is worse, religion, duties to the gods and divine worship will be prohibited, with penalties prescribed by so-called laws. So-called laws. Damn. This holy land, this home of sanctuaries and temples. Sanctuaries and temples. Sanctuaries. What is a sanctuary? Let's say. With all this holy land, this home of sanctuaries and temples, will all be filled with sepulchres and the dead. O Egypt, Egypt, only stories of your religion will survive, and these your children will not believe. Only words carved in stone will narrate your pious deeds. Scythians, I hope I say that right, Scythians, Indians, or other such will inhabit Egypt. It will be peopled by barbarian neighbors. The gods will return to heaven and abandon men, who will then all die. Thus Egypt, deprived of gods and men, will become a desert. Now I speak to you, most holy river. I tell of your fortune, I tell of your future. You will be filled with a torrent of blood, right up to your banks, and these you will burst through. Not only will your sacred waters be polluted with blood, but your banks will burst open, and the dead will far outnumber the living. Anyone who survives will be recognized only by his language as Egyptian. From his actions, one would take him to be a foreigner. That was disaster foretold. This section now is called Greater Evils. There is a restoration section. So, Greater Evils. Let's go. Why do you weep, Asclepius? Egypt herself will be led into much worse things than these, and she will be sunk in greater evils. This once holy land, which had such great love for the gods, where alone they deservedly fixed their seat on earth because of her devotion, for she taught men religion and piety, will become an example of the most ferocious cruelty. Then to men, tired of living, the cosmos will no longer seem an object of wonder or something to be revered. Tired of living, the cosmos will no longer seem an object of wonder or something to be reverenced.
So space and the divine, they become irrelevant at some point?
Not irrelevant. They're relevant, but we don't see them as such.
So it no longer has that desire or appeal.
Right, but it's always important. It's still very important. We just don't believe, and we don't see it as important.
That is wild.
And we're not done. Nothing better was, is, or ever will be seen than the goodness of this whole cosmos. Yet it will become a danger and a burden to men. Because of this, people will no longer love, but come to despise it. This inimitable work of God, this glorious creation, this perfection formed with such variety of images, this instrument of God's will, who in his work gives favor without partiality. This cosmos, a world of many forms, brings everything to unity, the unity of the all. It is a cosmos which can be revered, praised, and finally loved by those able to see it. The dark will indeed be preferred to the light, and death thought better than life. No one will have any regard for heaven, and a spiritual person will be deemed mad, and a materialist wise. An angry man will be considered strong, and the most evil regarded as good. All the teaching about the soul that I have explained to you is that the soul is born immortal or expects to attain immortality. This teaching will not only be laughed at, but considered an illusion. It will be held as a capital offense, believe me, for a man to have given himself over to reverence of the divine mind. Hold on, I don't understand what I just read. That sentence. It will be held as a capital offense, believe me, for a man to have given himself over to reverence of the divine mind. I see. It'll be held as a capital offense, believe me, for a man to have given himself over to reverence of the divine mind. That will be a capital offense. New rites will be created. There will be new laws. Nothing holy, nothing religious, nothing worthy of heaven or the gods which inhabit it will either be heard or believed. How grievous will be the withdrawal of gods from men. Only the evil angels will remain. Mingling with humanity, they will force these wretches into all the evils of violence, wars, robbery, fraud, and all those things which are contrary to the nature of souls. In those days the earth will not be stable, nor will the sea be navigable. Heaven will not be traversed by the stars, for the course of the stars will cease in the sky. Every divine voice will of necessity be stopped. The fruits of the earth will wither, and the land will no longer be fertile. The very air will hang heavy in lifeless torpor. Did a lot of that shit not happen though?
No, it's a lot of what you were just reading. I'm like, wait, are we currently still going through this? As I'm noting it off in my head, I'm like, are we not still going through this bad part right now?
Verbatim?
Anger's taking over, new laws coming into effect, having a divine
It's so
conscience is frowned
specific.
upon.
It's so fucking specific. Maybe it's just coincidence. It could just be coincidence. Like maybe he's talking about some other time it already happened. I'm saying that honestly, sarcastically.
If y'all can see the face, I'm giving her sarcasm.
I'm not turning this computer. Why you sitting over here? This is too much to turn. I want to capture the face. Anyway, restoration. Such will be the old age of the world. Irreligion, disorder, and unreason concerning all that is good. Irreligion, disorder, and unreason concerning all that is good. Such will be the old age of the world. When all this happens, O Asclepius, the Lord and Father, the God who is first in power and governor under God, who is the one, will consider the conduct and willful deeds of men. Through his will, which is the goodness of God, he will take a stand against these evils and against the universal corruption. He will restrain error and every malign influence. Either he will dissolve all this in a flood, or consume it by fire, or destroy it through disease and pestilence spread through different lands.
Are we reviving or are we dying again?
Consume it by fire. The wildfire situation, has not been a thing recently?
Yeah, that spread from the whole entire west coast to the east.
Floods, has that not been a thing?
Had several hurricanes and tornadoes hitting. Multiple at once.
Disease and pestilence.
2020, just gonna say that.
It's all
I don't even need to mention individual things. 2020.
Could be coincidence. That could just be the way that things have been cleansed over and over again, which I think is actually a thing.
I believe that's a thing.
Specifically, because I keep hearing stuff about golden age, silver age, dark age, silver, like these ages repeating. Anyway, maybe it's interesting to think about that
universal cycle of
either
repeating.
What?
A universal cycle of repeating.
A universal cycle.
It's
of
resetting
repeating
itself universally.
Jeez. So let's continue. Finally, he will restore the world to its ancient beauty, so that it may again appear worthy of reverence and wonder, and also that God the Creator and Restorer of so great a work may be worshipped by people then living with continual hymns of praise and benediction. By these events the world will be reborn. There will be a return of all that is good, a sacred and spiritual reestablishment of nature herself. It's interesting they're using her. I mean, they also obviously use he and him and father and stuff like that, but several times they refer to like Egypt as her. They refer to nature.
It's referred to as Africa as the motherland too.
It's true. They're calling nature her at this point. Probably
That's
honestly genderless.
In a lot of different texts.
Compelled by let's start that sentence over. There will be a return of all that is good, a sacred and spiritual reestablishment of nature herself, compelled by the course of time through that will, which is and was without beginning and without end. For the will of God has no beginning, but remains the same. As it is now, so will it always be, for the nature of God is the purpose of his will. In the highest good is this purpose, O Trismegistus. Will is born from purpose, Asclepius. and acts of willing from will. Will is born from purpose, Asclepius, and acts of willing from will. So first is purpose, then is will, and then acts of willing. And God wills nothing in excess. God wills nothing in excess, for he has unlimited abundance of everything, and he wills what he has. He wills everything good, and he has everything that he wills. Therefore, all that he purposes and wills is good. Such is God, and the world a reflection of that good. So, that, I just wanted to read, Tony, that prophecy because I can't remember exactly how we got into it, but how effing crazy is that? You don't know how crazy it is because we've been talking about so much stuff. Welcome to the first episode of Hypnosis.